Hey Alpha fam, welcome back to another episode of Alpha Commission. Today I just wanted to go over Qredo, get a little bit of an update on the last, kind of trading concepts that I put forward. You can see that video in the description below. I highly recommend that you check it out because in that video I went over a whole bunch of things that I'm absolutely not going to cover in this episode, and so you really want to check out that one if you want to have a full understanding of Qredo. Went over all these concepts, how you can trade it, different tips and tricks that I've learned since trading it since $1. And of course, I'm going to be presenting all this information one by one, not all just jumbled on your screen. But again, check out that video because it'll give you a heads up that other people just don't have when they're trading Qredo, and it's treated me very well to use those tactics. However, today, I just wanted to do an update because what we do have is our different levels for Qredo, right? And we're just kind of ranging in this area, sort of like Bitcoin. And so I just want to get rid of these because, to be honest, we already know what range we're in, right? We've been in here for, almost what, like 2 months, pretty much. Yeah, we've been in the same price action for almost 2 months. We've kind of had, this type of breakout right here, which is interesting that we're just retesting this breakout almost perfectly. Let me just zoom in there. You can see almost pinpoint precision, right? That we're retesting my diagonal. And by the way, I did draw that before we retested it. So let's see if we break down or if we bounce off bullishly. The last time that happened, we did have a breakout right here. We retested it again, almost with pinpoint precision. And then we went on a nice bounce, right? We went on a nice bounce, and then we fell to hell. So why did we fall to hell? Well, actually, again, this is just a really nice trading coin. And so please do check out that other video that I made. It's only 10 minutes and it won't take too much time, but it will give you some interesting insights, right? So we bounced here and then we fell to hell. And one thing that I didn't mention in the previous video was that we did have these type of fractals playing out. And I'll show you my fractals, but first I just want to give you some insight into what I think the measured moves are here. Basically, previously we were looking at a possible head and shoulders, and if we did have a head and shoulders, then it would be something like this, right? Where then it, breaks down, and we could go to a level lower, right? Well, we didn't know exactly where we would be here. We ended up getting pretty much higher on this shoulder than on this shoulder, so that suggests an invalid head and shoulders. And an invalid head and shoulders would imply that we're actually going to have a measured move up. Now, Qredo, as I mentioned in the other video and showed you exactly the history of how to trade it, sometimes has a double pump. So I actually measured it out twice, but you'll want to take some profits here, and I'll show you my profit zones that I have in mind. Again, this is not a series of calls. I'm not making calls for you. I'm not trying to lead you into one direction of being bullish or bearish with this asset. I'm just trying to share with you the insights that I have on this token and just doing a follow-up since I already made a video on it. And plus I've been trading it since it's been around $1, which means that I have a lot of passion for this project. I believe in it, and I think it has a long ways to go. Just I personally wouldn't be buying at these type of levels. I do like these levels down here. So let me just show you how I'm trading this one on diagonal since we've already seen the horizontals. Well, you know, there's kind of two sets that I've got here because you can see our horizontals are just these, they're just straight across, right? But I do think that there are these kind of subtle moves. You can see this point right here, this point right here, this type of subtle diagonal. And there's also a subtle diagonal that goes through here. It's not perfect. And then there's kind of this extreme diagonal where you can see the, this head and shoulders that played out. It really used that diagonal for the majority of its shoulder action. And if this area over here was actually going to have a head and shoulders, it probably would play out like this. Now, there's a reason why I'm telling you these things in this order, because if you consider the diagonals and don't just consider the horizontals, then there's something that should stand out right away. This could be a potential valid head and shoulders just on a diagonal. And it's kind of tricky, right? It's kind of tricky. See this one, the shoulder is higher. I mean, it's lower than this one. This price action is higher. See, it's really close to this diagonal line. And so it implies that the price action is going to be moving up. If this price action is pretty much equal to this price action, but the base of it is moving up and the whole chart is moving up, there's a higher than average chance that this is kind of a hidden head and shoulders, which is making itself look invalid because, if you just get rid of this for a second, because this side is technically higher than this side. So that would imply that price action is moving up and that this is an invalid breakdown formation. But if you consider that the whole path of this chart is on a diagonal, not merely on a horizontal, then the relative strength of that movement is actually weaker than the relative strength of this movement. And that can imply that our measured move down might still be in play. Okay, it might still be in play. And so the measured move is just the height of this, of the head and shoulders. Okay. And because this formation took place over, look, this is January and here we are in March. So it took place in, approximately 2 months. It could take a month or so for it to play out, right? We had a double top here pretty much, and it's taking a couple months to play out whatever measured move this double top is going to play out, right? We don't know where the bottom is yet. Maybe it's bottomed out. But the fact is that, it took this much time for us to have, a lower high, but it's basically a double top. It's a lower high, and this move is played out, right? The price action moved down, but it took months. It doesn't just happen right away. So just because, we didn't just break down immediately, doesn't mean that this head and shoulders isn't something that we shouldn't, that we don't need to watch out for anymore. Now, this is a great area to start considering, to look for whether or not we break up bullishly or whether we break down bearishly, based upon the invalidation or validation of this measured move here. So to get an idea of what I would plan for, if we did start breaking down, I would expect that this measured move is going to come out, and then I would also look for my support that would be parallel to this. And what I've found is that this, I just made a projection that this would be the support that we would have, like a parallel path that just moves along with these in this direction. And that this, subtle diagonal, which you already talked about previously, right? That this kind of wick here, this kind of wick here, this subtle diagonal would probably be the bottom of the market. I wouldn't expect Qredo to go lower than this. If it does, something's kind of broken with this coin. And so this is like my ultimate low, right? So this is just for risk management. But just for the healthy move of this chart, I would expect perhaps within this range. And then I would expect this to be a bit extreme. And one thing that I noticed is that we actually have a fractal in play, where if you look at the movement over here, and let me go ahead and remove some of these polylines, and let me get rid of my diagonals. If you look at the price action over here, it almost exactly mimics what we saw up here, right? And so this means that the psychology of this dip is still built into this chart. The algorithms, the bots, the traders, the psychology, and the logic that was in this like origin of Qredo is still in the chart. And if people had noticed that, if they had used fractals the way that I use fractals, I think you've maybe seen a few of my episodes, then you would have seen this and it would have looked pretty obvious to you as it was playing out. And it should have been, just a sign of how you could trade this bottom, how you could trade these sides. And what it doesn't tell you is what happens after that, right? It doesn't tell you what happens after. So here, when it played out, what we did get is, of course, extreme pullbacks, and we did get an extreme pullback, and then we got a pump up, and then the whole market took a turn down. So I think that this move right here is actually more related to Bitcoin and the economy and kind of a market correction. And then what happened is what's happening, I believe, in Qredo is that this logic is playing out again, almost like a reset, right? It's almost like it's resetting. And you don't have to take this on faith. This is just to build confidence. If you do start seeing things break down, just consider this as a possibility of what might be happening. Just don't trade on it, but just, it can add to your confidence of what you might do next, right? Which should be based on other technicals. And, if we go ahead and put our diagonals back on, you can see that this is very interesting because, it does line up very well with our, sorry about that. Yeah, with our diagonals here, right? And even that last one, it's saying that it's pretty extreme for us to go in this area. And that's also the bottom of this fractal, okay? So this fractal actually looks like it would hang on before it popped up, right? And maybe it could break down a little bit, but it's going to hang on to this level. And then, the majority of the price action is going to be through here. And then it's going to be recovered if it gets back up into this diagonal. And then maybe a measured move for this head and shoulders could play out, and maybe we could see $10 again, see $10 up here. Now that could take several months to the end of summer, right? To June. And this would suggest, just like some of the other charts that I've shown you, this could suggest that the market isn't done with a downturn. And this is going to be validated or invalidated very, very soon, okay? In fact, it looks like it could be validated or invalidated within the next week or two, right? Which would be very interesting. I'm not, gambling on this. I'm not making any type of a call. I'm just simply saying that I have a theory based upon a fractal and these kind of diagonals that what we're seeing here is actually a breakdown of this level, and that head and shoulders measured move, right? That this measured move might actually end up playing out. And I've seen other traders try to say that we were just going to go to the moon right over here, like almost a month ago, like when I was talking about Qredo. They're saying like, well, we're just going to skyrocket. Qredo's going to melt faces. We're going to be $100 in no time. Hey, come on, guys. Like, there's a psychology in this market. There's different levels that we're playing around with. And, we have to be aware that there's macroeconomics and different things that could cause a potential longer downturn than we would like. And so I'm not forecasting any of these prices, but I am just, setting myself up for various expectations where I have in my mind, possibilities, right? I'm not trying to be a fortune teller. I'm not trying to con people into buying, something from me, right? I'm just trying to lay out these concepts so that we can have zones to consider for buying and for potentially selling. So if we do start to break down, right, in this area, if we start to break down and, we're breaking down kind of intensely, then I would suggest that this purple box would probably be a nice area just to, if you're bullish, you could start to DCA in more of your position, just like you perhaps bought here and here and here, right? It's not a terrible level to buy. But personally, I consider this to be the middle of the chart. I don't consider it to be a value zone. I consider it to be, just an average zone. And where I would actually want to buy is, on these wicks, right? And again, I made these levels based upon the diagonals, and I made them based upon the horizontals. So these have supports built around them, both diagonally and horizontally. And this is what it's telling me. It told me to buy here, and I would have bought here and here. And it's telling me to buy here, which just coincidentally lines up with that measured move. And then if for some reason we have a nuclear holocaust and the world goes to hell, global recession or whatever, then, ultimately you might want to just keep this buy box concept open because Qredo does have a tendency to come back to its previous prices, right? It does backfills really well. And so you see this price, that's a backfill of this price, right? I mean, these prices just always come back to a previous price. Even right here, you had a wick and a wick, and you just you got a second chance. Qredo always gives you a second chance. So how do I know that this entire chart isn't going to give me a second chance before it goes to the moon, And that might be really what this is. This might just be Qredo's second chance for you to get in on those prices, very similar to what I got into around a buck, right? But we're more talking about like a $1.50 now. And I would probably just DCA in pretty heavily around $2 and $1.50, and then I would just ignore this middle area. I would just hodl, and then I might consider to sell around this area because look, you got a second chance. You got a second chance. There's probably going to be another second chance if this pattern is repeating. It's probably going to reach these type of levels, not break through it. So you're going to want to just, sell some position there, take some profit. You did a good job. You did a good trade. Take some profit, you know, buy back, a little on the retracement, on a bullish retracement, buy a little bit back and then, start to, DCA out again, right? And if we have a pullback here or a pullback here, then you can buy back in these middle zones, right? And then sell again when you reach those areas, right? We break out above this, buy back in, and then we're going to be in price discovery, right? So, good luck, right? But just based on the current chart, those would be my tips. And if you enjoyed that, please again look at the video. I'm going to post the link in the description. It's much shorter than this video. It's about half as long. And so if you want to have an advantage with trading Qredo, go ahead and check that out. Otherwise, if this fractal is invalidated, and it did play out here, for those who doubt fractals, it did play out here, and it's very obvious. If it's being reset because of this Bitcoin recession, then maybe it's going to play out. But if it doesn't, if it gets invalidated, and I'm perfectly happy with that, if it gets invalidated, then go ahead. This could be your last DCA point after the invalidation, after taking out this high, and then you just, take a little profit, take a little profit if we get up here, right? Or you just hold it until, if you think it's going to go to the moon. But that's your alpha for the day. Stay safe, guys, and happy trading.